Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast. At this point in my life, I recognize the richness and specialness of friendships. I don't even know if specialness is a word, but I just said it, so it doesn't matter. Those relationships that go far more than an inch deep are just really, really important to me. And I'm talking about relationships where you really know the person at more than an inch deep level. I mean, real spiritual stuff here. So life is so much more special when it's done with a good brother, which is the case with today's guest. So on the True Man Podcast today, I'm talking with close friend Scot Scoots, Malbatoast, Swivel Hips, Smith. I think I got most of the names in. Now, when I say close, we've known each other since grade school, even gone through confirmation together. Now, how long is that? May 6, 1984. And since Scot would have to take his shoes off to count that high, that's 36 years. 36 years right there since we've been confirmed. How do I know that date? I got the Lutheran Book of Prayer right here, brother. Yep. It graduated May 88, class of 88. We've gone through marriages together, kids, divorce, cancer, adoption, and I think the list goes on and on. But we know this. We're lucky, and we've come to realize that doing life together is a lot easier than doing it alone. And not everybody's that fortunate. Welcome to the True Man Podcast, Scoots.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I've been trying to get him on for the longest time. We both have January birthdays, in fact. So we even had that going for us. Now Scot, we've known each other for just as we said, a long, long time. And I'm going to put you on the spot right off the bat, because I love to do that. And as you know, not all relationships are built the same. How would you characterize our lifelong friendship and what it's meant to you?
I would characterize it, first of all, at a very, very, very deep level. And I think it starts back with us growing up in a small rural town in central Iowa.
Yeah.
A town, I want to say a city, but Boone's not a city. It's a town, a farming railroad type town, a population around 12,000, a little over 12,000, where people know one another. And, we didn't grow up, we didn't go to a high school with 600 some people in our graduating class. Our graduating senior class was probably about 150 people tops.
I don't even remember. 150, 180, something.
Yeah. Minus, the people that dropped out or whatever, that didn't graduate with us. But I think that's where our friendship and friendships start, especially in a small community like that. You really get to know one another.
Yeah.
Not on the surface, but on a deep level, and I think that's where our friendship started back in grade school.
Well, yeah, and I think it helped that we went to Sunday school together and went to church together, and kind of did that whole thing. I actually have memories. I don't know if you remember this, when we were playing football in 7th and 8th grade on Wednesday nights, where we had to drag ourselves out of football practice early in order to get to confirmation class. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, very much so.
I think we complained about it the whole way.
Yeah. Well, and it didn't hurt either. We grew up, we lived about 3 blocks from one another. Yeah. That's the other thing.
In fact, quick story here. I mean, how many people do this anymore? We walked to school, even when we were in grade school, right?
Yeah.
In fact, we walked to school so often. I don't know if you remember this. I was thinking about this as I was preparing for the podcast today. Our last day of high school, we all walked together up to the high school. Now, we could have driven at that point because we all had driver's license and there were cars and all that stuff. But we decided, we've been doing this our entire lives, that we were going to get up and walked to school together on our last day of school. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I think was another guy that we were friends with. I think Hughes did that with us. Jeff Hughes.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was trying to recall this. Help me out here. Didn't his mom even make like cinnamon buns for us?
Oh yeah, delicious cinnamon. Some of the best cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. Which I don't recall her ever doing that. God bless her, but it was kind of a special thing that that went on that last day of school. And you know, I cherish those memories and those stories because it was well, I think they're important to hold on to. It's a part of our childhood, which, you know, really helps develop you, and it becomes a part of your adulthood. And you know, it really I get kind of emotional thinking about it, actually, Scoots, you know?
Well, I do too. And you know, it's what formed us and shaped us. You know, it molded us into who we are today, I think.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Now, speaking of today, you know, it's interesting because boy, oh boy, I tell you what, I've said to my wife on several occasions, I'm like, man, my brother Scoots, he's got more lives than a cat. This guy, I've actually threatened to bring you and move you into my basement so I could keep an eye on you. I'll tell you what, there are so many events, but I've been on the receiving end, and we talk about this on the podcast quite a bit. There's always going to be a next it that occurs. You never know when you're going to get the knock on the door or the phone call. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, I've been on the receiving end of those phone calls from you.
Many times.
On more than one occasion. And yeah, we've had a lot of happy calls and shared a lot of laughs, but we've also shed a lot of tears and had a lot of difficult situations. And in fact, there's been so many, I don't even know where to dig in, but and maybe you do. I mean, there have been times when, man, I hurt for you so bad. I mean, you went through cancer. Maybe we could start with that. Is that a good landing spot?
Yeah, that's a great landing spot. Back in 2002, I don't know how deep you want me to get in with it.
Let's go.
Back in 2002, I was diagnosed with I was in between stage 1, stage 2 testicular cancer, quote unquote Lance Armstrong cancer.
Yeah.
How I found out about it, which a lot of guys don't do this. A lot of guys with when they have medical problems, they kind of sweep it underneath the rug. They don't go to the doctor and everything. And you know, women, I'm going to throw women out there at this. You know, women, you know, do their self checks, you know, in regards to, you know, checking themselves monthly or whatever in regards to, you know, lumps in their breast and everything. And they're pretty routine about going and getting mammograms. Guys, we don't do that. You know, we're ingrained, hey, you know, in our
it's not a masculine thing to think about.
Right. Well, anyways, one night I was in the shower and I just happened to be scrubbing and scrubbing down there and felt a lump. And it was a hard lump and it was painful. I'm like, that's not right. Something's off there. And so at the time I was on what was called an HMO insurance plan. So I had to follow the steps. So I went to see my PCP, primary care physician. And then, you know, he referred me then to an ultrasound. Lo and behold, I ended up at a urologist, and they found a lump on my testicle. And, you know, they just couldn't do a biopsy of it. They had to remove the testicle in order to do a biopsy on that lump. Lo and behold, it was cancerous. It was malignant.
Yeah.
And so the process then from there, I went into meeting with an oncologist. Dr. Naresh Gupta was his name. And, short man.
Well, no wonder you did forget that. Even I want to say it. Gupta. Okay.
Gupta, Naresh Gupta.
Yeah.
And before he referred me out for a second opinion. And anyways, I came back to him and I decided to go with him. And that was let's do chemo. So I went through 2 months worth of chemo, almost 3 months. I thought, if it's in there, let's just kill it. Let's kill this. But I went in with a mindset of, this isn't going to get me down. A lot of people that get diagnosed with cancer, sometimes they look at that as a death sentence.
Yeah.
Myself, hey, let's tackle it and let's go forward. And went through 2 months worth of chemo, lost my hair, lost a lot of weight, felt like crud for 2 months, but I got through it, persevered through it.
Yeah, you're softballing it here because we've talked about this.
Yeah.
That was not an easy thing for you to go through.
No, it wasn't. And at the time, it was even harder for my wife at the time.
Yeah.
And it was hard on my mom and my dad and my brother. There for a while, JP, my brother, who's older by 4 years, didn't even ask me how I felt. Refused to ask me questions about my, cancer. And I ended up telling him, just ask. Ask me what I've been through. Ask me what I feel like, what I felt like. I was open. I opened up. I never joined a support group, but found out going through cancer, there's a lot of other people that had cancer as well.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, Mike, there's a kid that graduated from Boone High School a couple years after we did.
Yep.
That passed away from testicular cancer. His name was Mike Johnson.
Yep.
And I don't know if his mom will see this podcast or not. I've always been wanting to tell his mom, June, that if it wasn't for Mike Johnson passing away from testicular cancer, I probably would have never caught it myself. I probably would have been like him. I would have just let it go. And I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. Johnson family is a lovely family. That was a tragic story. And I appreciate you telling your story today. And, if there's one thing I would say about it, men, put your pride aside. It is not shameful. Check yourself, because if you catch this early, it can be resolved. And Scott is living proof of that, because that was a very painful thing to go through. And actually, as a result of going through that, creates another story, doesn't it? Which is an inability to have children.
Correct.
Which brings a whole other story, which I think is interesting. So you've recovered from the cancer. We got through that. Now you don't have an ability to have children. And so you and your wife go on a different journey. Tell us about that.
After I went through cancer and went through chemo, it pretty much killed my sperm count, and which I couldn't father kids. So, and we wanted to have children. Yeah. And so we started looking at other avenues, and the road that we ended up going down that we chose was adoption.
Mm-hmm.
13 years ago on May 7th, we adopted a little girl. She was 5 weeks old. Madeline. She's going to be 13, a teenager, come May 7th. That was our first child that we adopted.
What did that feel like the process itself is extraordinarily long, and very detailed. That's a whole other podcast. And the adoption of children. That's a whole separate podcast. But what did that feel like to get that, let's say that initial call, hey, come pick up your child. You remember that?
Oh, we remember visiting with her birth mom the week before. We took placement in Madeline on a Monday. We got a call from her birth mom in the middle of the week prior to, and had about a 3-hour phone conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
She chose us to adopt her daughter. And then we met her on a Monday prior to taking placement in Madeline. We met her for lunch with her case manager, Mike.
We just met for lunch. This always is an amazing thing to me.
And let me tell you, it was the most uplifting experience, the most gosh, what's the word I want that I'm trying to search for? Just an eye-opening experience.
In what way?
Just kind of getting one to know her birth mom a little bit. I don't want to go into great detail in regards to her birth mom's background, but just knowing that she chose us to be parents, to care for this little girl and raise her and guide her through life. That's a huge responsibility.
Yep.
Just having kids naturally, is a huge responsibility. But to adopt a child, I think is even more of a responsibility because they're entrusting you. That birth mother's entrusting you as a dad, as a mom, that you're going to raise that child right and treat them with respect, treat them right, and get them through life.
Yeah. Well, listen, and I've known several people that have adopted, and it's quite a process. It is a very difficult process to go through, and it's quite expensive as well. A lot of people don't realize the expense involved into it. But above and beyond that, I am just amazed at the unselfishness it takes to say, hey, listen, we could go through life. We could just do life, go out to dinner every night. We don't have to worry about the responsibility of kids or whatever. Just do life. But instead, you adopt another human being and choose to love them and care for them as your own. It's amazing. I just think it's amazing.
Well, and they are our own.
Yeah, well, right.
So is Joan. I mean, on their birth certificate has my name and Rebecca's name on it. We're Smiths, even though they're not our flesh and blood. They're our kids, and
so Scott just jumped ahead. We were talking about one, and then he added another. So
and I'll talk about him here in a little bit.
The rest of the story,
but that's Paul Harvey would say.
Wow, that was quick. He's got
Paul Harvey would say.
Yeah, that's right.
If anybody knows who Paul Harvey is out there. Anyways, with going through the adoption process too, we had people, that said, I can never adopt. And I'd ask them why. And they're like, well, that child's not going to look like me. They're not going to have any of my traits, or eye color or hair color. They're just not going to look like me. How can we love somebody that's, that isn't our flesh and blood? And this is what I tell them, that's ludicrous. If you want to be parents and you can't have kids, adoption is a great way to go. And not only a great avenue to go to be parents, but once you bring that child home, all those preconceptions that those people have about that child not looking like you or blending in with the family all goes away. And that child becomes yours.
Mm-hmm.
And you become one with that child. And here's the thing, not only Madeline, but here's Jonah, our son, they're both biracial, Mike. Madeline's half Hispanic, half Caucasian. Our son, Jonah, he's half African American, half Caucasian. That's beside the point. But, we have two biracial kids, and that takes on a whole nother meaning to adoption as well.
In what way, Scott? And I heard you say, well, that's beside the point. It is, but it isn't in this world that we're living in, right?
Yeah.
As in what way does that, I don't know if this is the right word, complicate things or make things a little bit challenging?
In today's world, it probably doesn't, in today's society, it probably doesn't make it as challenging as it probably did 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 40 years ago.
I'm sure.
Because there's so many blended families out there now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interracial marriages, and kids, a lot of kids now, come from interracial marriages. And so, 30, 40 years ago, people would look at you and go, oh, wow, it's not, it's kind of taboo to have a child that is, I hate to say it, is of another skin color.
Yes.
You look at Madeline and Jonah, you can't tell that they're biracial, but they are. We don't announce it to people, but
you shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't have to. But they might ask, why is Jonah's hair the way it is? It's kind of curly,
He definitely does not have your hair.
Yeah, definitely. He has great hair. And I would love to have his hair. And Madeline, beautiful girl. She's, growing not up, but just, in all aspects.
Yeah.
And couldn't be more proud of her.
What is the adoption process and being a father brought to your life?
It's brought overwhelming joy to my life. It's opened up a whole new realm of friends per se.
Mm-hmm.
Getting connected with other people who have adopted that are close friends of mine.
Yeah.
Through the agency that we adopted through. We adopted through an agency called Gladney down here in Fort Worth. Gladney's been in the adoption arena for
a long time.
50 years, long time.
Yeah.
They're not the biggest adoption agency, but they're one of the most well-known.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten connected through adopting through that agency. We've gotten connected through a lot of lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. That I still stay in contact with today that have adopted as well. And it just opens up a whole new world to being a parent and meeting people who also have that same bond and connection with you as adoptive parents. And also the kids. Madeline and Jonah have lifelong friends that have been adopted as well.
Yeah.
Will have that bond.
Well, here's what I think is pretty incredible. You had a life event occur that really prevented you from having your own children, but you didn't let that deter you, right? Rather than, sulk about it, you were able to, make lemonade out of lemons and adopt children. And I've seen you walk through that, and it's been incredible. And you're a great dad, and I know you enjoy that. And I've appreciated you on that walk. Like I said, I mean, I just think it's incredibly unselfish.
It's a spiritual walk too, Mike. And I'm going to go back to the Bible. One character in the Bible that maybe a lot of people don't know, Moses. Moses was adopted. And that kind of set the stage, I think, for adoptions. Dating all the way back to the Bible.
Well, Moses is a pretty historical figure. So
Yeah.
maybe one of your kids will be the next Moses, huh? How about that?
Maybe it'll be Jonah. I've talked about Madeline, but we have a son that's 7 years old. He's in first grade.
Talk about Jonah a little bit, because he's got he has some challenges, right? And but I think that this is an important conversation to have as well, because there are other men that have kids that have various challenges, and talk about his challenges and how you work to get through them, if that's the right way to say it.
Well, with Jonah's adoption, that was Rebecca and I at the time, my wife at the time, and we wanted to have another child besides Madeline. And we were looking at maybe adopting a sibling group. And we went through the same agency, and we were going to adopt, a slightly older child, 2 or 3 years old, out of what was called their New Beginnings program at the time. And these are kids that are free, that are in the foster care system, that are free and clear to be adopted. And I got a call out of the blue from our case manager, Tanya, who I also interned with when I interned at Gladney my last 2 semesters at UTA. She called me out of the blue and said, hey, don't know, I know you kind of want to adopt a sibling group or a child that's a little bit older, but would you consider adopting a baby boy to be exact? And I'm like, and I remember this call, it was on a Tuesday afternoon. And I said, well, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What's, why such a rush? Jonah was born in Oklahoma. From what we understand, her birth mother had brought him home and was going to parent him. But about 2 months into it, she realized that she just couldn't, because he had some medical issues. And so she relinquished her rights to a judge up in Oklahoma. That judge had a connection with Gladney. They called Gladney down in Fort Worth. They came up and picked this little boy up. Apparently, from my understanding, there's about 3 or 4 couples in front of us that passed up on him. And then she reached out to me, and I said, you know what, I would love to, but I need to talk to Rebecca about this first. Can you give me a few minutes? And she goes, yeah, that would be a good idea. You better call me. I wanted to say yes right away.
It's not a dog. Don't. Look, honey, I got a new animal.
I wanted to say yes right away, but I said, I need to call Rebecca. And she goes, yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, man, so it's always important to check in. Do check in. Yes.
Yeah, I called Rebecca. We weren't on the phone for more than 10 minutes. And she said, absolutely. And so I called Tanya back, our caseworker, and I said, yeah, let's go for it. And the day before Christmas, December 24th, actually, 7 years ago, we were bringing Jonah into our household. He was born with a virus in his system that is still dormant in his system. It's a long word, cytomegalovirus. It could rear its ugly head. Would say if he was diagnosed with cancer and his white blood cell count went down, it could rear its ugly head.
What is it exactly?
It can cause brain damage. It can cause the brain to stop growing and forming. Knock on wood, that never happened with him. But after we brought him home, about 2-3 years into having him, we found out that he had some other issues, which he was diagnosed with what is called sensory processing disorder. And there's different levels to it. There's 3 levels to it, from the research that I've done. One level to it is kids with that type of disorder. They can be flaccid. Their limbs can be flaccid. They just don't feel. They can't feel anybody touching them.
Yeah.
Another level to it is you can touch them, and like, depending on what type of clothing they're wearing, they might not be able to wear certain types of clothes, because it might set them off. Okay. They might not be able to taste very well different types of food. Their palate is off. Then there's another level to it, and that is thrill seeking. Jonah was a thrill seeker. He's constantly going, constantly. People might think, oh, he's got ADD. Well, yeah, he does now, but he also has sensory processing dysfunction, where it might take him a while to process what you're telling him. You might have to repeat things 5 or 6 times before he processes it. And so we ended up getting him into occupational therapy and to help with that. And he's made astronomical strides, doing fantastic.
So as a father, and I only know this because I know your story, of course. As a father, how do you, because this little man, he's 100 miles an hour all the time. As a father, how do you process what he's going through and have the patience, right, to not get angry and stay present and be able to parent? What is your process for staying in that moment?
Prayer.
Yeah.
Going to God. There's some passages in the Bible I'm not good at reciting passages, but there's some passages in the Bible about, being slow to anger.
Yep. Be
patient. Jesus was patient with us. We have to be patient with our kids. And it takes every ounce of me to be patient with Jonah.
Yeah.
When he's around me, especially when he doesn't listen or when he's having a hard time comprehending something. It's tough, but you have to be patient. And as a father, dealing with a child that has that, seek help. Seek some type of help.
Yeah.
Just don't try to manage it yourself with your child. Seek help, because that help helps. That occupational therapy that we got him into has helped astronomically, and he's still going. He goes once a week, and it's helped him with his listening. It's helped him with his processing of stuff. He's not going 100 miles a minute all the time now. He's more subdued. Just going to kind of tell you one quick story, how we found out that he had this. We would put him to bed at 8 o'clock at night, was his bedtime. And it would take 2-3 hours before he would actually go to sleep. He was up and out of his bed constantly. That's normal for a lot of kids that age.
Yep.
But this was beyond normal. His body would be tired, but his brain wouldn't shut off. And so he was constantly going. Now he's able to shut off his brain at night. Unless if he decides he wants to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning, like he did this past weekend.
Well, that won't get any better, let me tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's how we kind of found out why we decided to check into, what was possibly going on with you.
Now, I bring this up because, listen, part of the reason I wanted to have Scott on, other than the fact that we're good friends, is I like everyday dads and men to hear real life stories about what other men are going through as fathers. and some of these real world experiences, because some of them just flat suck, if not out all of them, right? But the point is that there's always an opportunity to choose to bounce back. And that's what I've seen Scott do time and time again, because I mean, the story just doesn't stop with the couple that we've told here. Boy, I could probably go a bunch of different directions here, but you know, the reality is, Scott, you've also gone through a divorce, and I've seen you walk through that, and that has been a huge challenge for you.
Yeah, very much so. This May, it'll be 1 year since my divorce finally.
Has it really? Gosh.
Yeah. Yep. I was married for 21 years, and you know, with divorce, there tends to be a lot of blame that goes around.
Yep.
You know, my ex-wife and I are in a great position, co-parenting our 2 kids. But when she filed for divorce on me, it hurt, because
Yeah.
you know, 21 years of marriage, that's a long time. And you know, she just fell out of love with me, and we had some irreconcilable differences, you know, in things. But overall, you know, we had, you know, some ups and downs in our 21 years, more ups than downs. But when she filed for divorce on me, it hit, you know,
Yeah.
because I thought I was going to be married for the rest of my life to her. You know, in today's society, 21 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Most divorce, you know, most marriages don't last more than 5 years on average. And so 21 years, it's a long time. But when she filed for divorce on me, I had a lot of things going through my head, Mike. Well, one, how am I going to navigate just being a single person at age 51?
Yeah.
For one. Two, how am I going to navigate being a single dad?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that one day I was going to date sooner or later, you know, and possibly get remarried, hopefully. And so I had to get my mind right spiritually.
Yeah.
And so I started meeting with the pastor that I was at the church I was going to, you know, getting counseled by him spiritually, you know, in regards to my spiritual growth, you know, as a dad, as a man,
Mm-hmm.
and as a human being.
Yeah.
You know, and I made a comment to him one time, I guess God, you know, only gives you stuff that you can handle. And he corrected me on that. He said, you know, that's a myth. It's a misnomer. He goes, God actually gives you stuff that you can't handle, because he wants you to rely on him, because he can handle everything. And so I embarked on that spiritual growth with my pastor and got involved in church heavily. Then I also started going through some therapy as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go into detail with that, but I knew that I had to somehow connect with my kids, being a single dad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, my therapist said, you know, you got to be present and in the moment when you have your kids.
Yep.
I only get my kids, you know, 3 weekends out of each month.
Well, that's great advice for any father.
And you know, so the limited time that I have them, I have to be present and in the moment with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being present in the moment, I mean, being active with them, giving them your undivided attention.
Yeah.
You know, and knowing, letting them know that you're there, that you're not checked out. And I have not been checked out. I've been checked in for over a year with my kids.
I can 100% vouch for that. I can 100% vouch for that.
But, you know, just not those two avenues that I went down, they were parallel. But this is something else I'm going to kind of refer back to the Bible. Um, uh, Peter, tried to walk on water.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was out there in
Yep.
the storm,
Yep.
Waves and everything. And there for a while, Peter was doing pretty well. Then he started to sink, started to drown.
Yep.
Because he lost faith. He lost faith and he got scared.
Yeah.
And God reached out his hand, pulling him back up. What are you afraid of, Peter? And he got back in the boat, and God got back in the boat with the disciples and they were calm. He calmed the seas, calmed the storm. I've had some friends, close friends, you for one, but I've got other friends and family that have helped me get through the storm. And one particular person is my mom. She said, there's a lot of people that are helping you through this divorce, that have helped you through this divorce. They're still helping you today. Are you willing to get in the boat with them or not? Are you in the boat with us? If you're not going to be in the boat with us, we're not going to help you get through the rest of the storm.
Yeah.
And so you have to be in the boat as well.
Yep.
And I'm grateful for them.
Preferably rowing in the same direction.
Right, exactly. And learning to be grateful.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. It was tough, man. That was tough to see you walk through as a man and as a brother. And I knew that there was going to be some low moments, but you've been able to push through it. Yeah. And, I've told you before, I'm incredibly proud of you for being able to push through with such a level head, because it was tough.
And, through all that, you tend to find out who your true friends are.
Yeah.
And who you can rely on, and letting them know that you're grateful for them. And also knowing that maybe one day you're going to have to pay it forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're going to be on the other end. Yeah. That's how life works. Yeah, it is. It really and truly is. Scott, it's incredible. And again, I just appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, because there's a lot of intimate stories. And I got to tell you, we didn't even talk about COVID. Mm-hmm. Listen, I get a call from Scott. I got multiple call when he had COVID. How long were you in the hospital?
6 days.
6 days in the hospital. Jeez, that's it. Because I'm telling you, I took a couple of phone calls and I literally said to my wife, Jill, I'm going to lose him. There's no way. I'm like, I can't even believe anybody could sound that terrible. And there were a couple of days there where I'm like, oh man, my brother's going down. Oh, I mean, it was brutal.
I almost waited too long going to the hospital. If I would have waited another day, I probably would have never walked out.
Yeah, you should have gone to the hospital sooner, you moron.
Yeah, I know. Hey, it's a typical guy thing.
It is a typical guy thing, but I'll tell you what, I was scared. I was really and honestly scared. I mean, there were a couple times you called me and all I heard was just you coughing, wheezing. Oh. And
I had double pneumonia in both lungs. And the reason I didn't go to the hospital right away is, I was watching the news, left and right, and I would hear these news stories about people going in and not coming out. And I'm like, I don't want to be one of those statistics, Am I going to go in and not come home? Am I going to go in and never see my kids again? And so that kind of held me back from going in early. But it got to the point where I got to go. And ambulance rolled up to the house. They wheeled me on. Boom, I'm in. And thank God I did. You know, praise to God that He got me through that.
Yeah.
You know, and came out of it okay. You know, it took a while to recover, but you know, I recovered.
Yeah, man, the stories are real. It's been we've had an unbelievable ride. It feels like we've seen a little bit of everything. And maybe next time we have you on, we'll tell a margarita story or something. Really, I really try to embarrass you, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to do that today. Number one, some of those stories are probably inappropriate and better kept unsaid. Anybody that was there, you know who you are, and that may be listening to this. Yes, it was priceless, but that's beside the point. No, I listen. I wanted to have you on today because just the stories about, you know, doing life. And you know, I got to tell you, I so appreciate you as a man of faith. And, you know, a word that comes to my mind is just positive perseverance, because, man, you could have thrown in the towel a number of times. And, you know, you keep working through this stuff, man. I so appreciate that about you. And it's the reason I wanted to have you on this, because I want men to know, hey, listen, number one, the relationship you and I have is available for men everywhere, and we should be having them. Okay. Have close relationships. It's important to your well-being. But two, man, you're going to go through some shit. And when you go through it, you can come out the other side. And my buddy Scoots here is a walking model of that. So as we wrap up,
to your point, you know, yeah, we're all going to go through stuff, you know, throughout our lives.
And yeah, I can say it. It's my show. So yeah, go ahead.
There's one thing that's kept me going and grounded, and that is my faith.
Yes.
Faith in God.
Amen.
You know, and surrounding people that have the same spirituality as I do, you know, that believe in Him, and being able to spend time with God alone each day.
Yeah.
You know, through devotions, daily devotions and prayer, and also surrounding yourself with people, like-minded people, you know, that are prayer warriors as well.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody else can, you know, there's people that, you know, I've come across that, you know, might not be there for you at times, but the one person that's always there that never gives up on you is our Savior and Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen. Well said, brother. You know, we're going to wrap it up, unless you've got some great nugget you want to drop on us, but I think you just did. You know, we're going to wrap it up here. The stories could go on and on, but so appreciate you having you on. I wish we could have done it on your birthday, but guess what? He called me and he was like, I thought he was dying again. He was so sick. So we couldn't quite fit it in then. And I'm still threatening to move you in my basement and make sure that you get taken care of. But well, my wife won't let that happen. So
anyway. I can't be a Georgia Bulldog fan.
Who said I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan? You know,
roll Tide.
All right.
I appreciate you having me on, Mike.
Absolutely. You're a blessed friend, and I have appreciated being a lifelong buddy. I regret the fact immensely that you're an Alabama fan, but I'm, you know, we're not even going to talk about that. So, Scoots, thanks for being on the show. Loved having you here. Appreciated you being upfront and honest and sincere and telling your story. So,
hey, thank you for giving me the platform.
Absolutely. Take care, man.
All right. You too. Bye.